Welcome to another episode of Dead Headspace. I'm your host, Patrick R. McDonough, joined by my friend Brennan LaFaro. Say hello, Brennan.
Hello, everybody.
And joined by our other friend, Candice Nola. Say hello, Candice.
Hello, Candace.
And today, that is guest host John Bowden. Say hello, John. You have to do the
Hello.
And we are talking to Chad Lutzke today. Say hello, sir.
Hello.
Let's dive into it. What got you into horror?
I I don't have a cool answer because I've got a freakishly good memory, like back to where I was like about 3 years old, maybe just before 3.
Holy shit.
And even from as far back as then, there was like this strange obsession that I just liked things darker. I liked the uglier toys and the ones that had ghosts and monsters and stuff. It was just something I was drawn to. So I don't really have. I can't pick one thing. If the only thing I guess I could pick would be that it was in my blood because my biological father was a monster kid who was a huge fan of famous monsters of filmland and all the magazines that were popular back then, comics from the 50s and all that stuff. And I didn't know him until I was older. But yeah, I guess we shared that thing. And I did run across his monster magazines in the attic at my grandma's house. And I used to just obsess over them. And my mom wouldn't let me bring them home. So I'd always want to be going to one of my grandma's house and sit there for hours and just stare at these pages. And yeah, it was just always there, man. My mom she gave me this recording. She did an interview of me when I was I think 5 and one when I was 7. And on the one where I was 5, she said, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And I said I wanted to be a blood and bone doctor so that I could see the blood and bones. I don't know what that means, but I never made it. So I don't know. No blood and bone doctor for me.
John Bowden, jump in, sir. What are your instant thoughts of that?
What got me into horror?
No, of Chad's answer.
He's a weirdo. I don't know what to say.
John, go ahead. If you want to keep going, go ahead. If not, I got a comment from Bob Ford.
Go ahead with Bob's. I don't really have much to add there.
Said Chad recently cut his hair. Did he feel slightly less productive or weaker afterward? And Bowden, because I asked him if he had a question for either of you. He said, in Bowden, no. That little lamb chop will do just great.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's funny, Bob. Yeah, I think Bob gets more strength from his hair than I do, maybe. But no, I felt more powerful, as a matter of fact, because my hair was too long. I cut, I think, 7 inches, and then I waited a little bit longer, and then I cut like another 7 inches, and it's still pretty long. So yeah, stronger than ever. You know what? I cut my hair myself. Which is something I've never done before, other than when I had dreads or a mohawk or I've shaved it bald before. But I've never cut it myself, and I wanted to have layers. And Christina Osborne, I think is her last name, NW Reader, she does covers and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
She had cut her own hair, and I was like, that's so cool. I want my hair to look like that with like layers and stuff, because mine was just all one length. And so she sent me a video and I watched it, and you put your hair in these 2 special ponytails and then you make 2 cuts and let your hair down and it's done. And it's the best haircut I've ever had. And it was free and it took 2 minutes.
Shit.
So thank you, Christina. Yeah.
Shit, I just wish I had hair.
I'm just thinking, all raise your hands if you thought that we were going to be doing, DIY haircuts this early on in the episode.
Yeah, you heard it here first, man.
I did not see it going that way.
And then in the YouTube version, you'll see the tutorials. So stay tuned. Brennan, go ahead, buddy.
I'm interested in that whole idea of you kind of gravitating toward dark stuff, and especially, and I wonder if, as you kind of got older, if it stayed geared towards monsters or if the dark stuff went in a different direction. Because when I think of Chad Lutzke writing, it's dark, man. Like it's dark. It's a lot of times it's takes you to an unhappy place. But at the same time, it doesn't always gravitate toward that kind of supernatural aspect. So I wonder what kind of, took you from the darkness to where, you eventually wanted to tell stories.
I think a lot of it had to do with like visually, I like, stuff like Evil Dead and Dead Alive and supernatural stuff. But I like when I'm reading, and particularly when I'm writing, I like to do stuff that's a little bit more based in real life, like things that could happen, not necessarily have, but things that could happen. And I think that comes from between in my late teens and early 20s, I went through some really traumatic stuff. One incident in particular that I think probably is why I have some of the thoughts that I do as far as just the topics that I choose to write about they're based in real life, but they're horrific, not necessarily like horror adjacent, I guess, or literary dark. I don't know what you call it. I've just
Lutzke
always,
stories.
yeah, I've just always kind of marketed it as horror because I didn't know anybody else, and this is like my tribe. So I know there's a wider audience out there, but I'm thankful that the people who enjoy, more traditional horror enjoy the stuff that I do as well. So
Absolutely. Now, one thing that kind of got me thinking, I remember when you wrote Wormwood with Tim Meyer, he would talk about how he kept trying to gear it toward the supernatural, and you kept slapping his hand back.
mhm.
And that got me thinking about collaborations, and you've collaborated with a fair few people, and they're all fantastic, and I wanted to talk to you about that. And then, hey, look who showed up but Mr. John Bowden. So I'd love to hear the two of you talk a little bit about your experiences collaborating, both with others but also together.
You want to start that story there, Chad?
Okay. My first collaboration was with Terry M. West, who's a fantastic writer. And we did this zombie novel that is more about, it's way less about the zombies than it is another story that's really going on. And that's one of the things that I liked about it. That was my first thing. It was like, I think we had like a kind of like, we had like some ideas, and then we just threw the ball back and forth. And then the next time I did a collaboration was with John. And when we wrote Out Behind the Barn, he had sent me a story called Maggie's Farm. It was like 3,500 words, if that, maybe.
That's about right.
Yeah, and I really liked it a lot, but thought that it was too short. I thought it was just super special, and he needed to turn it into a book. And it kept getting rejected, and he was sending it out again. And I said, I hope it gets rejected again, because I don't want anybody to buy this story and then just be lost in some anthology that nobody's ever going to read, except for the first month it's out or whatever. It's better than that. So it got rejected, thank God. And I approached John very carefully because I knew,
Because I'm kind of a dick.
no, I just knew that this story meant a lot to him, because it had like a lot of his mom in there, and it's a really touching, like the ending. Just, I don't cry. I cry easy when I'm watching movies. I don't cry at all when I'm reading. But that story, the ending of that made me tear up, and I read it twice. And so anyway, I threw some ideas at John, and he liked them. And then so we added another whatever it was to 15,000 words to it or whatever. And then with Tim, he had a story. He had heard me on This Is Horror podcast years back, talking about what an a-hole I was in my younger years and all the trouble that I would cause and get into. And he said he wanted to write a book based on something like that. And I said, cool, go for it. Let me know when you're done. And then a couple months went by and he's like, well, actually, do you want to write with me? And I said, sure. And so we wrote Wormwood. It changed a lot from it wasn't the same book. And yeah, he kept trying to do the supernatural stuff and I would just take it out. and and then I collaborated with John and Bob Ford a little bit on our own separate novellas. And then just recently, John and I wrote easily one of the best things we've both written. It's I love it.
It took almost 3 years, at least.
I don't think it took that long.
We started that in February of 2020, and we finished that when, like, January of this year.
Yeah,
that's. I'm bad at math, but I think that's pretty close to 3 years.
I thought we started in 2021, but you might be right. I think we both got busy with all kinds of stuff. We could always blame COVID, I guess, maybe. But
I don't know. Life gets in the way sometimes. It's just how it goes.
Yeah, but that book is it's me and John. There's no surprises as far as like you know what you're getting into. You're gonna cry. You're gonna. It's just the prose is great. Yeah, I sent it to Crystal Lake because Joe Meinhardt had reached out to me and said he really loved The Pale White. I think it's one of his favorite books that he's ever published. And so he wanted something from me again. I said I didn't have anything done, but I'm writing something with John. What if we send it when we're done? And he loved it and got back with us. And so we signed with him, and that will be out.
I think January.
The beginning of 2024. And it's called The Bed Makers. And it's not horror. It's a crime thriller with the that's got a lot of heart in it. And it's a novel. It's a full-length novel too.
It's long.
It's long for us.
Yeah.
Candace, jump in.
Okay. So with all of the stories that you have now, which one not which one, were there any that you had to kind of like stop and take a break from because of how it went? Like, did any of them put you into a frame of mind that you just wanted to take a break from?
I did want to take a break, but I didn't. Probably with Stirring the Sheets, just being in that headspace of being, the guy loses his wife. I saw a lot of myself in him and his reaction to it. And I didn't like being there for very long. And then maybe Wallflower, just because some of the research I had to do was really sad to me. And it was a time where my hometown was just everybody was just ODing. We had like 60 ODs, like deaths, within like a month. And they had run out of all the, Narcan? They had run out of all that. And that was my response to that, seeing heroin become like this designer drug that you would just hear about jazz musicians doing, or people, Sid Vicious or something, in London, and here it is, it's everywhere now. And you never know what's in it. So yeah, doing the research, watching videos of people nodding off and talking about it, and then visiting forums where they openly talk about their use and how they do it, and don't use this tinfoil because you need to use this type of tinfoil or else it's going to do this to your lungs. And I'm like, are you guys hearing yourselves? You're doing heroin. What do you care what kind of tinfoil you use or what side of the tinfoil you're using? You're killing yourself anyway.
Yeah.
So it was really sad. So both those books, I couldn't, particularly Sheets, I could not wait to be done with. Yeah.
Okay. Along those same lines, are there any that you might want to rewrite now compared to the way that you had written it then? Like anything that you would change or that you feel maybe didn't quite come across the way that you wanted it to?
That's a good question. Not really. I mean, I kind of did that when I put my first short story collection out. I did what most people do, and they just want something for their shelf. You know, they want to have that first book out, and I put it out myself, and I really don't like that collection at all. It just, the stories in it, there's a lot of supernatural stories in there, and it's not that the stories are bad, they're just more like little Twilight Zone episodes.
Okay.
John can attest to the fact that I am a completely different writer than that collection.
Yep.
So I went through and I did a revised and expanded edition, and I included like 3 or 4 more stories that I was more proud of, and then I went through and I cleaned up to make them more like Chad 2.0. You know, make them have more of my voice that I eventually finally found. So I did do that because it was self-pubbed, and it was, you know, it was okay to do that. And I have encouraged another author to do that before, because I didn't tell him his book sucked, but it did, and he was asking for advice about stuff like that. And I was like, dude, you self-published it, do it again. You know, do it. And if you want a different cover, people rebrand all the time. I've seen people rebrand, get new, do rewrites, get a new cover, like an adequate cover, like a series or something like that, and it just blows up after that because they finally have something that people want to read and that people start talking about. So, but yeah, it's an interesting question. The thing with my writing is I try not to read it after it's out and everything, because I will rewrite. I'll find things constantly. I do that with paintings too. It's like I don't even like to hang my own paintings up because I'm like, I could, I want to take it down and add some more paint or something like that. Feels like it's never finished. So
got it.
Got another. Sorry, Candace, I didn't want to cut you off.
No, you're fine.
Got another one more thing from Bob Ford. He says, ask Lutzke about his titles too. He's a big The Cure fan and wonder how much song lyrics play into how he writes ideas, etc. And he said that's where the Same Deep Water as You came from, Cure song.
Yeah, that whole book, The Same Deep Water as You, is based on a winter and a summer in my life, and about 90% of it is true, but I fictionalized some parts and kind of made it more dramatic, and I thought that it would make for a cool story, but I wrote it for me, and I thought if people enjoy it too, that's fine, but I want this. And the reason why I called it Same Deep Water as You is because the soundtrack for that time, The Cure's Disintegration album might be my favorite album of all time. I love The Cure, and that was the year that I discovered them. And it wasn't me who was listening to it. It was with my best friend at the time, who was this girl, and we would drive around all over the place and hang out and go skateboarding. And she always had Disintegration on playing like in the background. So it wasn't until our kind of friendship ended that she that I was like, man, I miss that record, and then I realized what it impacts. So now, even today, when I put the record on or hear any of those songs, it takes me back to that year. And that's probably why it's one of my favorites. I mean, it's just a great record anyway, but
it's a perfect record.
Yeah, it's a good album.
Yeah. And so I sprinkled some lyrics throughout. All of the chapters are named for a song from the album, and then some of the dialogue is actual lyrics, just in a few spots. And I made it as organic. I would have put more, but I wanted to be super organic. I didn't want it to look. I have a hard time with people who put pop culture references in their stories. Like the guy walked out and he had his Metallica shirt on, and something knocks me right out of the story. I know that people like to do that, But for some reason, if I was writing that, I would just say his band shirt. I don't, something about those specifics that knock me out of there. So I try to, if they are in there like that, I try to make them as organic as possible so that nobody rolls their eyes and they're like, oh geez, he's just trying to mash a bunch of Cure stuff in here. And so, but yeah, I think that's the only book that I named from us. I mean, I have some short stories. One called Here in This Place is a Means to an End, which is Misfits lyrics from the song Green Hell. And so I do that kind of stuff once in a while. Sometimes it prompts ideas, song lyrics and stuff.
Does anyone want to jump in? Anything to add to either The Cure, Chad's writing?
Chad in general. I'm actually on the music thing, because you're a musician. Do you have trouble writing to music? Like, I know some people can only write to instrumental stuff. Some people enjoy having stuff with lyrics on, but a lot of times when I talk to other musicians, they'll say, well, I can't have anything on because it's firing off a part of my brain that kind of contradicts the writing.
Dude, you nailed it. Yes, that is me. I can listen to some music, some movie soundtracks. I can't listen to any music that I really, really enjoy, or any kind of like rock or anything, because I'm listening to the instruments. I'm picking out, whether it's something that I'm familiar with or not familiar with. My mind is on the music because I love music more than writing and more than reading. So yeah, I'm dissecting it instead of paying attention to what I'm doing.
Boy, I'm glad I can't play an instrument then.
I
Because I listen to music all the time.
What do you listen to typically?
Whatever. Today I was listening to like Spade Cooley, which is like 1943 country swing. And then I was listening to Billy Squier.
Okay.
And then I was listening to ZZ Top, and then I was listening to some Bowie. It's just I just put on whatever.
I'm right there with you, man. Candace, I don't know if I asked you this before. Do you write with music on?
I have, but usually not. If I have to be in a certain frame of mind to write a specific part, then yeah, I will. Like a fight scene, an action scene, something really intense. I'll usually have something on that's very intense in the background, like Metallica or something really like to rage out against because it puts me in that space. Other than that, no. I have to write with like nothing, just total silence, unless I need to be like in that frame of mind. So, yeah.
Brennis, lead us into the conversation of 3 Mile Smile.
Okay, let's talk about 3 Mile Smile.
Mile.
Did you make a title like that to just fuck with people? Is that I had to concentrate saying that title.
Dude, so did I. For the first probably 20, 30 times I said it just like everybody else says it. I've been on podcasts where it's said 20 times and they never get it right. Yeah, no, I mean, no, I named it that just because of what happens basically at the beginning, and then it's kind of comes full circle at the end. But
did Tim Levin have any influence on your character named Cake? Because that man's obsessed with cake.
No.
Fair enough.
Nice, easy no.
Yeah.
I want to kind of talk about, you mentioned earlier that you almost kind of self-put your work into horror, at least horror adjacent, just because those are your people. And obviously this and things like Neon Owl really kind of take a trip outside of that. So as far as, you declaring this a cat and mouse caper or cat and mouse novel, what are a lot of the influences that kind of drove you into this story?
Joe Lansdale.
That's fair.
I can blame him for a lot of how I write. I could blame John too. I've picked up on a lot of John is where my prose is better because of John, because I started reading him and picked up on some things. I don't write as poetic as he does, but I once in a while I'll do a Bodenism, in there.
I should patent that term.
But I'm not a big crime reader. I mean, I've read some, but I've read a lot of Lansdale, and I just like Lansdale. I mean, you guys probably read enough of him to know he's just like he's such an easy read. And I love first person. I love writing in first person. It makes, I just feel like it makes a story go smooth. It makes you feel like you're more like you're there, like it's more urgent, like you're really being told something that happened. And for me, it's just easy to write, way easier than third person. So, yeah, believe it or not, another writing influence that I almost forgot about, and then until I saw somebody else recently had a same writing influence that I've never heard anybody have a influence by this writer, but Henry Rollins. I bought a book called I Scream one time in the 90s, and it's just like vignettes of not really stories, just observations, or you don't know if these things happened in his life or what, but they're all kind of abruptly cut off to where it gives you a bigger punch. And then just this paragraphs, it's like paragraphs. Sometimes the stories or whatever you want to call them, the vignettes, are pages long, and sometimes it's a paragraph. And they're all of these things out of context. And the way that some of these abruptly end, it's kind of like a really well edited movie. Or sometimes the only reason why we laugh in a certain scene is because it's abruptly cut. And it makes the context just funnier and more random. And so I do some of that a little bit and I just like punchy stuff and quick, clean prose. I'm not a big description guy, probably because I don't like reading it. I don't understand some of it. I'm reading a book right now and I'm like, why are you talking about this room? I don't care. Because I think by default, if you say, I walked into, the police station, immediately by default, you have an image in your head. And then when it's described to you, you've got to break out of that, which can potentially kind of pull you a little bit out of the story. And now you've got to force your mind into a different image. And unless you really need it for the story, I don't understand descriptions sometimes. I just don't. So many of my books, I don't even describe the characters. They could be black, they could be white. You just don't really even know. I don't see the importance of it unless it's it is important. I have a book coming out that has a black character, and you for sure need to know that's his race. So, yeah, I don't know how I got it. Is that answering the question? Or did I just take a left turn and start rambling?
Right down the highway. Now, speaking of Bodenisms, now, am I wrong, or is there a nice little Stark Spungunyon reference pretty early on in that book?
Yes.
Yeah.
There is.
That's absolutely one of my favorites. John's book there. I'm
glad somebody likes it.
Yeah. Hey, at least one.
A lot of people like
no, seriously, everybody should read that book. It's a fantastic one.
That's another hard one to say, though. The title.
Did I get it right, John?
Huh?
Did I get it right?
It's Spungunyon.
Yep. Suck it, Pat. So anyways, I want to talk more about kind of you were talking about, in a way, pacing, in a way, starkness, and one thing I wanted to ask you about is the bulk of your work is at that around 100 pages novella length. And it reminds me for all the world of like a 90-minute movie. And I wonder if that's a consideration. And I think, 3 Mile Smile absolutely has that going on. The just like get you in, hit the gas pedal, and we're just, no filler attitude. And I wonder if that's a consideration when you sit down to, in as much as you plan out a book.
Not really. I think it's just me and how I perceive things and what I like. You know, we all kind of take our if Stephen King is like mainly who you read, then you're going to have probably big books with tons of description, 400 more pages than you really need, that kind of thing. And I love Stephen King. I'm not this, but we all know, you know, he could use a stronger editor. But anyway, I think it's just like how I see things. I don't. I guess I suppose normally someone would start 3 Smile Mile with a big background thing on Cake. Maybe he's not even at work yet, and then you see more of what's her name, Diane, with her husband, and there's a whole story. You know, like another 100 pages of all this. I guess I don't know, man. I'm a little ADHD when it comes to that kind of stuff, and I'll read it and I'll watch it in a movie, and it doesn't necessarily bore me, but I think it bores me to write it. I want to get to kind of the meat of it. I want to drop it in and give you enough to enjoy the characters and let's get going without. I never want to like overstay my welcome. You know, we've all read books where it's like, man, that was a great book, but I think maybe it did overstay its welcome a little bit. You know, if it was movies too. I mean, my gosh, movies these days, so many are, they're not 90-minute movies anymore. They're, tacking on another hour. And much of the time that a lot of that can be cut out. So.
I'm kind of with you on that. It's like I have this bad habit, you know, whether there's some imposter syndrome in there or whatever, of just being petrified of, well, what if I get bored? Because if I get bored, like the reader doesn't stand a damn chance. Mm-hmm. And I think that absolutely, like, approaching telling a story with that attitude, be it positive or negative, is such a big impact on the pacing. And for what it's worth, the story never drags. So I mean, if that's what you're going for, then mission accomplished.
Yeah, it was just a short, quick. I mean, the idea of the story was so spontaneous anyway that I came up with it trying to sell a book cover, and I just commented on, I think it was Tim McGregor, said something like, "This looks like a Lansdale book." I said, "It does. It looks like," and then I just typed out essentially the synopsis for 3 Smile Mile. It looks like this is what would be in its pages, and then I hit reply, and then like I looked at it like an hour later or whatever. I was like, "Dang, man, I'm writing that book." So I took the cover off my website and off Instagram and off Twitter, and I wrote the book and put it out.
John, I want to throw an unfair question at you. You ready?
Okay.
I would love for you to talk about a favorite Lutzke book and why.
My favorite of his is Skullface Boy.
I thought that might be where you're going.
I can't really explain why I connect with that one like I do, but I think it's perfect. I mean, I love everything that he's let me read. I get to read it before anyone else does usually, but that one is still and has been my favorite since I first read it, because it tacks into I like stuff that you can tell it's personal, no matter how hard and clever we try to make it not seem like it is. And that one's just, you can tell that's very personal stuff in there, and it resonated well with me.
Yeah, I just recently read that one for the first time, and it's
surreal for no reason. Like, I love weird shit that you just, hey, this is how it is. No explanation, really. Like, this dude's got a skull face for no real reason. Here we go. And I love that.
You're absolutely right. And that's not necessarily, that's not the journey. The journey is the journey.
Yep.
And one thing that I love about that book are the small moments that add up big, like the trip to Rainbow Rick's, the impromptu yard sale, and especially with like Rainbow Rick, which is such a touching part of the book, and I don't think it lasts more than 8 pages.
But they're all so important to the story. It's almost like he's on like an Argonaut quest, and he's getting artifacts, like, the yard sale he gets the wallet, the bookstore he gets this book, and it's like, it just feels like a journey.
Yeah.
It's so good. It's still my favorite.
So Chad, in regards to that, I mean, do you have any considerations for packing a lot of character into a small space? Again, I'm thinking of like, the trip to the bookstore. There's just so much in those few short pages.
No, because I pants everything. I never know how big of a part a character is going to play. In the example would be in Neon Owl. There's a character in the name Roddy, who's everybody's favorite character. And initially, he was supposed to just be this weird drunk that showed up one night, and then we never see him again. Turns out that's the first time Roddy has ever been drunk in his life, and he only has one leg, and now he's the handyman, and now he's just kind of a sidekick partner. And it just worked so well. And with Skullface Boy, seriously, that thing was so absolutely I mean, I pants everything, but that was probably the most pants out of it.
The pantsiest, would you say?
Yes, the pantsiest. And it was prompted by Google traffic, because I was taking a literal road trip through Google traffic from Denver to Hermosa Beach. And so some of the stories in there were prompted by pictures, which is a lot of fun, and pictures that I really saw on not really people, but and then I'm a huge David Lynch fan, so I wanted to add some just kind of weird, like the guy says his legs don't work, and just at the yard sale and things like that. Where if you watch movies like Wild at Heart, Wild at Heart is a fairly, for David Lynch, is a pretty straightforward movie. So is Blue Velvet, but there are small parts in there that are straight up like more like Twin Peaks or Eraserhead, where it's just like, what does this even mean? It's so weird that this is here right now. And that's what I wanted for Skullface Boy. But then I also wanted it to be really endearing. I'm not a big fan of Bizarro, but I do like taking something bizarre. I do like the idea of having, like John said, this is just how it is. You're not getting an explanation. This is it.
Just accept it and go. And that's why it wins.
Yeah.
So, John, Chad said that your prose influenced him. Is there anything, and no silly answers ever from you again, sir? No, I'm just kidding. I'm not going to tell you what to do. You're John Bowden. So, anyways, is there anything that Chad has done in his writing that has influenced you as a writer?
Character interaction, I would say, because he's very good at like very realistic interaction with his characters, and I often struggle with that. Like, I have very small cast of characters in my stuff. Like, very rarely is there ever more than like 3 or 4 main people, and I very rarely have them interact together because I just get too overwhelmed with more than 2 people talking or doing anything. But I've learned a lot from reading his how the way he makes his characters interact, and the way he does action, like when actiony things happen, because I'm not good with that either.
I freaking hate action, so thank you for that.
But like 3 Mile Smile was like, I was like, wow, this is how you write this stuff. So I took notes in my brain that I probably lost, but I took them.
Yeah, that Neon Owl definitely has like Lansdale pumping through your vein. Those books veins. That's the best imagery I'm giving you guys for the night. I don't know.
Books don't have veins.
Okay, I quit.
They do have spines.
Oh,
should have rolled with that.
Yeah. But anyway, seriously, it has super big, heavy influences of, at least I took it as of Lansdale in there. And I'm just thinking of when Neon Owl, you have a guy that is shitting in one section of a bush, and the way you describe how he picks it up and throws it, it definitely seemed like something Joe would write. There's no question there, but if there was one or two things you want people to know of Neon Owl or 3 Mile Smile, what would you pitch to them to try to get them to be a reader?
First thing I would say about the 3 Smile Mile is that it's called 3 Smile Mile. And then the second, I'm just messing
I'd
with
feel
you guys.
worse if John didn't get it wrong too.
Yeah,
I mean,
he did it.
we're-
Nobody's getting it right, and that's
so
fine.
sorry, Chad.
Wait,
I'm
what did
looking on my notes. I literally wrote it down wrong. So
what did I say?
is it possible that you're wrong?
You said 3 Mile Smile too. You've all been saying it wrong.
3 Smile?
It's
Yeah.
3 Smile Mile.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Dude, I'm just messing. It does not bother me at all. I would say that first what comes to mind really is with the Neon Owl. If you read the synopsis about, trying to find out who's shitting in the bushes, that is not the whole case. That's not the whole case that goes down at Neon Owl. There's a murder mystery here. So if you're not into poo humor, then that might turn you off.
But you lured us in with shitting in the bushes. So
Yes.
it is important.
Yes, that's kind of my way of saying, you like Lansdale? I got some of that in here. So, yeah, so that's not, it gets more serious. We've got some murder going on. It is a whodunit. So, and then, 3 Smile Mile, John said recently that was me. I don't know how he worded it, but like that was that. Would you say, John, that was?
Oh, it was the leanest thing you've written, I think I said.
Yeah, but it sounds like I had found my voice even more, or this was my thing.
Yeah, I don't remember what I said. I don't know. It was days. It was a long time ago, and I can't remember like that.
Yeah, this is what I'm best at, or something like that. And I would agree. I mean, there are a handful of books. The books that I had the most fun writing, and that I think are the most well written, are probably my least popular ones, like Skullface Boy. The Same People Are As You. Two of probably my top two favorites. And then, but I really had fun with 3 Smile Mile. I like the way that voice is. I just, again, first person, but there's a kind of a crimey there's a kind of a way that you need to write crime that's kind of, you don't have to, but it's the way that I like it. And they're just where there are very short sentences sometimes. Things aren't spelled out. Like in the first page, it says something about bees stinging I can't remember, but it's just like I revert back and just instead of reiterating, it's more of just like breaking it down again into like a single word or something. So the reader knows what I'm talking about. And I love trusting the reader, and that's the way that I like to read, and that's the way I like to write. Nothing will make me put a book down faster than an author who doesn't trust me enough to know I know what you're talking about, and you don't have to break out the crayons for me. So I tried not to, I don't want to leave this trail of breadcrumbs. I want to trust them, and if they don't get it, well, the book's not for them, I guess. But
feeding your reader. Yeah, I agree with that. I don't care for that shit either.
Yeah, the books that I love the most are just, where I was reading Laird Barron's, the heck is this?
Blood Standard.
Yeah, Blood Standard.
That's so good.
And that's a prime example of,
hell of a writer.
if you haven't read crime before, particularly somebody like who wrote Glitz.
Is that Ray Garton?
No,
Glitz is Elmore Leonard, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh.
Elmore Leonard. If you've never read Elmore
Okay.
Leonard before, or Laird Barron with this thing, you could maybe get confused with the lingo and the way that this is written. But talk about an example of trusting your reader to know what's going on, and being fairly lean. But I don't know that I would want anyone to say to anyone that I want to know about either of those books that bring them in, other than if you like crime and humor and Lansdale, then you'll like Me and Owl. And if you just like Lansdale, you probably like Three Smile Mile too. Not everything that Lansdale's written, Cold in July, not all of it's funny. Some of it's pretty serious, but Three Smile doesn't have any humor in it. But I like writing crime. I like it more than maybe horror.
Ines, you got anything else?
I was going to say, since we're along the lines of which ones would you want to pitch, if somebody was new to you, which would you recommend that they start with, and what would you recommend as the last one that they read?
The last one I would want you to read is my first collection, Night as a Catalyst.
Okay.
First one probably the best gateway would probably be like Up Foster Homes and Flies, or Stirring the Sheets, or maybe even The Pale White. Those are good examples of. But I have my newest short story collection has really nasty, grotesque stuff in it, and it has really funny stuff. It has a story that's not horror at all about the horrifying nature of getting your first kiss when you're a teenager. That's one of my favorite stories I've written. And then it has some really heartfelt, emotional, dark horror that's like, Stirring the Sheets or The Pale White or something like that. It's full of everything that I do, and it's I'm proud of all of the stories. I don't think there's any filler in it. So if anybody wants to, unless you don't like short stories, there are people who don't, and I don't blame you, but short story collections don't really sell all that well. But if you're wanting to find out what it is that I like to write about, that's a good example. It's Spinal Remains.
Yeah, I was about to ask. Okay.
Okay.
Brennan? Brennan?
Oh yeah, Brennan.
I wanted to make sure that we brought up recently you jumped into writing children's books with your wife. I'd love to hear you talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, it's something I've always kind of wanted to do, and then I have, I don't know how much I should say here, but screw it. I've really grown tired of the horror scene, the people in general, and not everybody. I've got some really dear friends. It's a lot of people I don't really know, It's just Twitter, and Twitter is like this demon that I have to feed to try to sell books. I keep my mouth shut on it and stuff. I don't know why more people don't keep their mouth shut. And I don't understand a lot of the like high school antic stuff that goes on. I'm probably getting myself in trouble, but
No, I'm laughing because I'm pretty sure a lot of people can relate to that. That's all.
oh, I know a lot of people, and they just keep quiet. And what a lot of these people that speak so loudly don't realize is how many people don't agree with them, or are not on their side, or don't like them, or whatever, from big name authors to. So I don't understand. I just, the drama of it all, I guess, is what I'm saying. I just don't. It's tiring. I'm too old for it. I don't like to see people fighting. I love people, and I don't understand this savage mentality that people have toward one another. And it doesn't even have any. Sometimes it doesn't have anything to do with anything that's going on in the horror thing, in the horror circles, but just in the world in general. If you have a different opinion, no matter what it is, Snickers sucks. I love Snickers. Well, but anyway, so this is why I wrote 3 Smile Mile, and wanted to kind of, hopefully find a different audience, even though I didn't actively search that out. I didn't like really mess around with ads and stuff. And I've got a nice reader base. I'm very grateful for everyone who reads my stuff. Some wonderful people that I've met through either writing or reading. And the children's thing was kind of taking a step further. and I didn't want to use a pseudonym. And I've collaborated with my wife before, just doing art, and we just like doing stuff together. So, giggity. So we decided to do a children's book, and then we thought, well, let's do another one, and we planned on doing like hopefully like 7 before the year is up. And I'm not one of these writers who like writes because they feel like they have to write. They have to, I mean, sometimes it feels like that, but I want to make money. I want to have a career writing. You know, I'm not too far from retirement, so I want to be able to have a bunch of books out there that can help out with retirement, you know, with royalties and whatnot. And yeah, so hopefully putting a bunch of children's books. I've always loved the artwork in children's books. There's some gorgeous artwork in there, and so we tried to, come up with our own style for the first one. And just like with my book covers that I do, they're all different. You can't necessarily look at one book cover and then see another one and be like, oh, that's Lutzke. And I think that has a lot to do with me being like there's some great cover artists out there, but when you see their art on everybody's book, I don't want that cover artist, and they're phenomenal, but I don't want their art on my cover, because then my book looks like everybody else's book, and it starts to. So I've always tried to use a gazillion different styles when doing book covers, and we're doing that same thing with children's books, with doing different styles. We just finished the second one. It has a completely different style, and then we've started the third one, and that has another style too. So it's like a ADD drawing, or paint and illustration styles. I don't know. I just like that. I get bored. It's probably why I watch the different movies that I do, listen to the different music that I do, and write in all the different genres that I do, because I just get bored of myself, and I'm bored with genres and listening, watching, whatever. So, but yeah, it's been fun. I love working with my wife. She doesn't know anything about the marketing aspect and stuff, so I'm trying to teach her a little bit about that, because that's the hard part, is trying to get your book. I knew some of my readers would buy it, whether they had kids or not, and that's what happened. But I want other people, to who have kids, to pick up copies and read it to their kids before bed or whatever.
Awesome. I want to go back to the how we interact with each other. Specifically, if there's new writers, I would like to hear from you, because you've been doing this for a while. I'd like to hear you talk to them, tell them what's a positive spin on it. What is something that you wish you heard? Because for me, something recently that I heard was like, you never know what potential agent or publisher or people you might want to work with, maybe in the film industry. Is there anything that you wish that you were told working in social media as a writer that you would like to pass along to maybe a new writer listening?
Yeah, I guess just don't compare yourself to others. It's hard, which is hard to do. But just don't do that unless you're talking about the writing itself.
However you want to take that question.
No, I'm saying
ambiguous.
that's part of my advice. Like, don't compare
okay.
Don't compare your success to others. You can compare your writing to others. I think that's important, because especially if you're one of these writers who is surrounded by yes men and women, yes, this is great, and I love this son and everything, and really it sucks, but they don't know how to tell you, or they just don't see past the love that they have for you. And keep your head down, and just while you're ignoring other people's successes and just trying to make it happen for yourself, know that luck is a huge part of this. Talent is, but so is luck. Sometimes you're just in the right place at the right time. The book falls into the right hands at the right moment sometimes. lots of books get more success than they deserve. And that's just the way it is, just, but yeah, and just keep your head down. Don't do too much research because that can pull away from your writing, and you think it's like a way of fooling yourself into, I'm writing a book. No, you're not. You're watching 30 Westerns throughout the week, and you're writing or reading 2 different Westerns every other day, and because you're going to write just write the Western. Not to say that there's not anything wrong with that, but you have to have the writing part be the majority of what you're doing, because then that research part, it's kind of like it's the mistake that can be made when you, like I said, it sounds like you're busy because you're doing the research, when you really should just be writing. The research can come, later. Like how much was potatoes in 1866? Did they even sell potatoes? Did they have mashed potatoes at the inns? What were when the restaurants? What are those called? Just leave little marks for yourself to look that up later. You don't need to memorize all of the Wild West or whatever genre that you're writing. Yeah, just write, man. Just was it Ketchum who said, ask a seat and write?
Ask and see. Right. Yeah, that's great
Yeah.
advice. Anyone want to jump in before we start winding down?
I was just going to say, and 99% of your readers aren't really going to give a shit whether or not you could get, those potatoes in 1866 or it wasn't until 1873.
Yeah.
So, I mean, try and get the details right, but it's going to be you stressing over them half the time, way more than any reader,
Hmm.
Okay.
That's all I had, Patrick. Go ahead.
Okay. Now we'll just go down to the currently reading section. So we'll start with you, Chad. What are you currently reading?
I'm reading a handful of books. I'm reading. I just picked up Dean Koontz book because I hadn't read Koontz in maybe 25 years, something like that. I'd stayed away from him just because, exploring the indie world and stuff, and read stuff, authors I'd never heard of but never read. And I've only read like 3 Dean Koontz books, and I loved all of them. But then I guess he started writing about dogs all the time, so people are staying away from him. So it's like, well, I'll go back earlier and I'll read Watchers from '87, and this won't have a dog in it, and it's the very first one I get. This is where it all starts with the dog. So the golden retriever with the psychic abilities or something. So I've been reading that, and then I've been reading, finishing this up, Paper Towns by John Green, which I bought used, and it's a signed copy. So
Oh, wow.
he wrote
That's
The Fault
cool.
in Our Stars.
Excellent. John Bowden, what are you currently reading?
I am currently reading a collection by Orrin Gray called Painted Monsters and something. I can't remember what the and something part is, but I love his stuff. I got to read and review his newest collection, so then I went back and bought his older collections.
Nice.
And
man.
that's what I'm reading, one of those. And then I think I have Lansdale's new one next in the pile.
Oh, the Donut Legion.
Yeah. I didn't read that one yet. That's next.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
It's Lansdale. I mean,
what a stupid comment, right?
right.
I don't know, man. I think you're going to enjoy it.
Candice, what are you currently reading?
I am about to finish The Curator for Owen King's interview. And I just finished reading, I just lost the name of it. Damn it, it was in my head.
Come back.
God, I was just looking at it. Wait a minute. A Dark Autumn by Christopher Ruffty. I just got done with that.
Nice.
It's great. And I have Pieces of Me by R.J. Rolls that I'm about to start next. So.
Excellent.
Excellent.
Mr. Brennan.
I have just started The Legend of Charlie Fish.
Oh, that's
by
an
Josh
excellent
Roundtree.
book. It's excellent.
I'm only about 30 pages into it, but it's weird as you like. I think it was Lansdale on the front says the Black Lagoon meets the Six Gun universe, and you get 20 pages in, and you're like, oh, yep, that's it.
Yeah, it's a super fun book.
Yeah,
You
I'm
son
enjoying
of a
it so
bitch.
far.
You stole mine.
Yep. And I also just started Whale Fall by Daniel Kraus, and I'm about 50 pages into that one, and it's awesome so far. It absolutely flies. If you don't know the premise of that one, it's he wrote it as what if a scuba diver got swallowed by a sperm whale, but with like an entirely scientific basis. So I mean, down to the fact that their stomach is about the size of a sleeping bag, and just the kind of almost 127 hours of it all. But it's written with these short, sharp chapters, these, borderline fragmented sentences. Even when you do flashbacks, it's still like just like punch, go. And I'm really enjoying it so far. Patrick, how about you?
All right, I said you stole mine, you son of a bitch. That's the one I just started, so I'm not even 30 pages in, but yeah, Lansdale on the cover. I gotta give it good faith. So sounds like it's good. It's weird. It's Western. Chad, where can people follow you?
Just go to chadlutzke.com, and I got links to the dreaded social media stuff there. Contact information, links to where you can buy just about everything I've put out.
Nice. Same question for you, Mr. John Bowden.
I'm just most of the social medias I'm on there. I'm easy to find.
Candace Noah.
You can find me on Uncomfortably Park and all over Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, all that under me. That's it.
Brandon LaFaro.
Yeah, that name on most platforms. Still not on the TikToks.
You can find Dead Headspace on pretty much all the platforms, and me, PR McDonough. And final thoughts. We'll start with you, John Bowden.
I don't really know. I'm really tired, and I'm not thinking very clearly.
That's perfect, Chad.
Yeah, I don't really know.
Hey, Chad brought it up earlier. You abruptly cut off someone, and it serves a comedic purpose.
Final thoughts. I don't know. I mean, I guess I could tell people I've got a book coming out next month. I think on the 15th. It's up for pre-order. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to say that it's up for pre-order, but I know people have been buying it. It's called How the Skin Sheds, and it's a Western on being published by Dead Sky.
Nice.
And then Cemetery Dance is publishing.
Shit, I could have done that in my window too.
Cemetery Dance is publishing my super sad body horror coming of age book on January 1st called Bruises on a Butterfly. And then I think in January or February or something is The Bed Makers by the amazing John Bowden and me. And then John, you have Dead Sky book coming out.
Yeah, Snarl's coming out in September finally.
Yes, that's a funny and fun title.
Snarl.
Oh, Snarl.
And if you like Spun
Singular.
Gunyon, you'll like Snarl because they operate in the same sort of atmosphere.
Snarl's
I'm in.
probably John's best book, other than Bed Makers.
Oh, nice. Candace, final thoughts.
Final thoughts. Just always happy to be here. Chad, this was actually really great. You're amazing to just listen to.
Oh,
And
thank you.
I really like that you don't just give like one or two lines, just okay, here's my answer and I'm done. Like you really go all in, which is what I really like. Like when I listen to anything along these lines of an interview, someone, I want to know like what's going on inside their brain. I don't want that standard like one line answer. This is the generic answer. And I really like that you went just all in with each one of them. So thank you.
Thank you. I will tell my wife that so she can leave me alone about how I talk too much.
I thought it was great. So
Thank you.
Brian, final thoughts.
I am very appreciative of everyone's time. It's late on a weeknight, and thank you everybody for staying up with us. People should absolutely pre-order those books we mentioned, but in the meantime, read The Pale White, read Of Foster Homes and Flies, read Skullface Boy. For John, read Walk the Darkness Down, read Spun Gunnion.
Yes.
They're great books. For Candace, read Bishop 2. It's out now. And if you didn't read the first one, read the first one.
Damn. And if you want Brian LaFargo, just kidding, Faro.
Hey, that's not yours. That's a
said I could-
giveaway copy.
He said I could have it. Illusions of Isolation. It's a collection. It just came out. It's a really cool cover by Matt Wilderson. Yeah, it's Brendan's first collection. It's really good. The first story is my favorite. What's it about? Well, buy it and you'll find out. Next episode is 202 with Stacey Wilson and Candace Nola and Brendan LaFargo and myself. I forget who called you LaFargo, but it just popped in my head.
It's stuck, apparently.
Yeah. So thank you, Chad, Candace,
Thank you,
John,
guys.
and Brendan.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for sticking around. You have made choices in podcasts. Thank you for picking us.